Welcome to the Pointe podcast. The Pointe is for outside listeners curious to know more about NorthPointe's mission to equip students to impact their world for Jesus Christ. We're so glad you joined us, so let's just get to the point.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pointe podcast here at NorthPointe Christian School. And so excited to have you with us today, I think, for a really fun conversation. My name is Chip Huber, and I serve as one of the Bible teachers here at NorthPointe, but also serve as the director of student activities and programs. And one of the things that I love doing at NorthPointe as well is being the varsity guys soccer coach. And so I spend quite a bit of my days thinking about and helping to run the athletic programs and kind of mentor some of our coaches here at NorthPointe. And so one of the topics that we know that a lot of NorthPointe families are thinking about and wrestling with these days is this topic of youth sports. And how does it fit into our lives? What role should it play? Is it growing too big in the role that it plays in our families' lives? Just asking a lot of really important questions. And we are passionate about athletics at NorthPointe and really want athletics to be another place where we really build into our student lives so that they'll take what they've learned and grown as a result of being a student athlete and then go and use that to make an impact for the kingdom. But it's a really challenging world. And so I'm really excited. Our guest today is Brian Smith, and Brian has been on staff with Athletes in Action for Brian, over 15 years now? Is that what I read?
Year 18 now.
Year 18. Awesome. Fantastic parachurch ministry organization that supports athletes in particular, a lot on the college campus. Mm-hmm. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, it's a global sports ministry, but we do a lot at the collegiate level.
Yeah. I've gotten connected to Brian a little bit. He's a local West Michigan guy, which is awesome, but in particular because of a book that Brian and another author, Ed Uzinski, just released called The Away Game, a Christian parent's guide to navigating youth sports. And I've had the chance to work alongside some other leaders from other Christian athletic schools over the last few months and reading and thinking about this book and really trying to be reflective about the role of sports in the lives of our families, but even in the role of our Christian schools. So Brian's been incredibly helpful in that process, and super excited to have a conversation with him today.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Brian,
Chip.
welcome to NorthPointe.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So maybe just a little background. First of all, kind of your family, your faith ministry involvement, and maybe your athletic background as well.
Grew up playing every sport imaginable. So it was baseball, football, soccer, golf, you name it. And I played it. I entered high school as a freshman, 4 feet, 10 inches tall, 95 pounds. I went to Rockford High School. My first week, I tried out for soccer, basketball, golf, and I got cut. Way too small to even think about playing football. Really, the only sport that I could do that I was not going to get cut from was track and cross country. And so I started running track my freshman year. I didn't run cross country till my sophomore year, and I ended up being pretty decent at it. By the time I was a senior, I took second in the state in the mile, got a scholarship.
Decent, huh?
Decent, yeah. So I got a scholarship to run at Wake Forest University, and so I ran track and cross country there all 4 years. Right after I graduated in 2005, I moved to Wisconsin and married my high school sweetheart, Lindsay, who was a cross country runner at Wisconsin. We actually met in high school at Rockford. Joined staff with Athletes in Action shortly after that. I had a brief stint where I was coaching the women's cross country and track team at Wisconsin for a little bit as a volunteer assistant.
Awesome.
But then we got married, joined staff with Athletes in Action, had kids. We were doing college sports ministry with Athletes in Action at Wisconsin for a little over 10 years. During that time, we had all three of our kids. So Hudson is now a freshman in high school. He goes to Lowell. And then we have two kids who are adopted, Judah and Hadassah. Judah is 10, Hadassah is 14.
Awesome.
We moved back to West Michigan 2019.
Okay.
And so I still do a lot of stuff with Athletes in Actions, our ultimate training camps, which are kind of a global camp that we do to integrate faith and sport. I have discipled athletes from the professional level all the way down to elementary school. I've coached from the collegiate level all the way to youth sport. I'm a high school cross country
So you're coaching high school right now. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have my master's in biblical studies and sports through Truett Seminary. So I've I've done a lot at the intersection of faith and sport. I love sport. So even in these types of conversations, I want to be careful to say, like, I'm not a, like, winning doesn't matter. No, we need to try our best. We need to pursue excellence. But I love figuring out what does it look like to integrate faith into sport and not have them be compartmentalized.
I appreciate that. And I love the fact that Brian has this background as a high-level athlete and has kind of seen the whole spectrum. Because really, obviously, as a K through 12 school, we've got families right at NorthPointe just beginning to put their kids into the sports world. And we've got kids at the end thinking about that next level. Am I good enough to play at the college level?
For sure.
What is the future in terms of athletics look like? Awesome. So tell me, Brian, why this book at this time? And why specifically did you write it really focused on Christian parents? I feel like there's been a lot written about to coaches and athletes, but why parents and why this time?
Yeah, well, I did I mentioned this, a lot of discipleship with college athletes at Wisconsin and other schools too. And just in my meetings with guys, like a lot of their issues with identity and pressure and anxiety, a lot of that could be traced back to playing youth sports, specifically with their relationship with either their coach when they were younger or even their parents and the amount of pressure that their parents put on them. And so I had that as a category in my life for a while of, like, as I'm mentoring guys, tell me about sports growing up. What were your parents like? How did they, how did you receive their feedback and the pressure that they put on you? So that was kind of a growing category. Then when I became a parent, had my kids in youth sports, the category just blew up, and I saw my own insecurities, my own gaps that I had, where as I'm watching my kids play, I'm saying things out loud that a Christian sports ministry guy should not say out loud for other people to hear. And so it was almost like a mirror that God was putting in front of me and showing me just all of the kind of the nasty stuff in my own heart that was coming out. And as I was looking for help for myself of, like, where do I go to grow in this? How can I get better? Just realizing there is a lot of, like, secular stuff on how can we do youth sports better, but not a whole lot of stuff integrating faith. And that's my niche right now. Like, I'm a writer. That's largely what I do with Athletes in Action.
Right.
And so it just became one of those spaces where, man, could I, using my own experience and then everything that I'm reading and talking with Ed to in my history in this space to kind of put together some sort of practical guide to at least get a conversation started with youth sports for parents.
Great. And I know you've done sort of even some educational work on this, but can you give us just a little history and kind of context of how we've arrived at this place in our culture where it seems like there is so much conversation and so much question, and right when it comes to sports in our culture, and
we're
the place that
exasperated.
it's arrived.
Yeah, we are exasperated. We're frustrated. Let's start with where we are right now. Youth sports is a $40 billion industry, and that's only growing. So that's more than the entire video game industry. Youth sports is right now. So just to think about all of the money that's invested into that. Kids are quitting right now at an astronomical rate. And so again, let's talk about where we're at before how we got here.
Definitely.
70% of kids quit before the age of 13, primarily because they're saying it's no longer fun. And so we've created this $40 billion industry. We've professionalized youth sports. A lot of times well-intentioned parents and organizations, but the kids are saying, I don't actually want that. I just want to play and I want to have fun. Yeah. So how did we get here? In the book, we trace 6 different threads, a couple of them. One is the rise of the college scholarship. And so in 1970s, the baby boomer generation decided that college, it almost became this, you had to do it. It became a rite of passage, and it became highly encouraged. And once they saw that, man, youth sports could be a free ticket getting into a college at a cheaper rate. Yeah.
Right.
Their kid essentially became a ticket for them to save money. So that was a big...
There was that economic
That was
belief,
a big part of
right?
it.
That was going to help economically.
Yep. And so that was around 1970. If you just look at the ebb and flow of what happens with the economy too, like when our economy suffers and we're hitting a drought, all the public money that's usually going towards the youth sports space, which used to be largely publicly funded.
Right.
When the economy is in a downturn, that gets pulled. And so how do we make up for that? Private equity, it becomes privatized, really. And so over time, as you keep dipping and you pull public things, it allows new private groups to come in and subsidize it a little bit. And every time a new private group comes in, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it almost creates what we're seeing now. We have 2 separate entities where you have the publicly funded youth sports stuff, but then all this privatized stuff comes. And then one of my favorites stories about how youth sports got the way it is from Disney, actually. In the late 1990s, they decided that they wanted to make the worldwide center of sports complex.
Yeah.
So their thinking was, man, we have all these kids coming to our theme parks, but they start to age out of it. And so what if we built this sports-themed park so that when kids are done with their Disney princesses and princes and Toy Story rides, whatever, they could actually go and play sports. And it was going well. And what happened then in 2001 was 9/11, the terrorist attack. And what they found was over the next year that people stopped going to their parks, but attendance at this sports theme park doubled.
Wow.
And so they had this weird thought of like, man, youth sports is almost, it kind of sounds morbid to say, but it's almost like terrorism proof. Like, man, nothing is going to stop youth sports parents from their kids going.
You can't.
And so all the other cities and municipalities took notice of like, man, people are flocking, and they saw the opportunity. And so now I think today there's over 30,000 like massive sports complexes, largely because of what Disney did. And so how did we get here? It has largely been a result of entrepreneurs seeing that well-intentioned parents will spare no expense in helping their kid be the best that they can possibly be. And unfortunately, what that means is that kids become oftentimes products and commodities. And then when you have these specialized groups who are, I don't want to say they're all about making money, because they're not all about making money, but that is a significant factor in it.
Right.
When you have all these groups pushing bigger, best, what happens is what used to be a playground for character and virtue and discipleship has now become one about training and getting that scholarship. And so we've replaced character building with striving to be the best. That's where we're at right now.
Right, for sure. And I mean, I think so many parents are feeling that, right? Like, I mean, a lot of us can relate to that. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting in your book was that idea that I think we've all grown up. I mean, I've heard it thousands of times, right? Sports builds character. That's exactly, but you're saying maybe that's not completely 100% true, that not just automatically because my kid is playing or having a sports experience in today's culture, it's maybe not going to produce.
It's a good assumption.
It is, right?
That sports build character, but they've done studies to show that sports actually on its own does not build character. And the reason they're able to say this is there's just so many different variables that you don't know who the coach is going to be, who's going to ref that game, what the parent culture is going to look like. And so they just can't find a way to measure it. What they have found, though, is that sports can build character when there is somebody who's owning that process to help take kids from what's happening on the field and turning that actually like into discipleship moments. So I feel like you don't need to look any further than the handshake line after the game at most youth sports events. And what's happening is you got kids who don't even know how to look somebody in the eye. You don't have kids who know how to shake somebody's hand and say, good game. Why? Because they haven't been taught to do that. We assume that if we just throw them in the handshake line, it's going to build character. But if anything, you might argue that the handshake line today is almost eroding character because we're not teaching them how to do it the right way. And so it can be done. It takes people to teach them how to do it. And unfortunately, we have taken all of that teaching and training and put it on the performance side and less on the character side. And you can do both. And I would say that too. Like you can do both and you should do both. But oftentimes in our chase for perfection, we're leaving the character stuff behind.
Yeah, and I really, really appreciate it. And we talk all the time here about we really do want to be an and program. We want to do both, right?
Yeah, it's not either or.
And it's so interesting, even coaching high school soccer, they actually this year recommended, there's a tradition, right? The referees stand after a soccer match in high school level. Everybody shakes hands, and then you go all shake hands with the referees, and they recommended for the first time that the referees not stay around for that. And a ton of them fought back against it and said, this is ridiculous, right? But there was something even at the state level for the MHSAA that they were fearful now of the handshake line or fearful of something bad happening in that moment. So I think that's a really great example of
I think we have enough
how things have gone
evidence.
awry, right? You know, that they're so concerned for the referees that they're saying, hey, we really think you guys should take off and not stand there anymore.
Yeah, and that's where we're at as a culture right now.
You talk about stress and anxiety. How do you see that sports and the youth sports experience in particular for so many kids today? There's all kinds of things about social media, about appearance, about all these things that we know elevate stress and anxiety levels.
Yeah.
But how does sports potentially contribute to
Yeah,
that?
and I think it's good for parents and coaches too to understand there's a difference between nerves and anxiety, right? And so nerves are, if somebody's nervous before a game, it's them saying there's an opportunity before me that I'm uncertain of, but I'm excited about it.
Yep.
Anxiety is there's an opportunity and I feel threatened by it, that I'm fearful of what's going to happen, that it almost has identity level consequences. And so where we're seeing that in sport, studies have been done on this, which is crazy. They've shown the more money parents spend on youth sports, the less the kid actually enjoys it and the more pressure that they feel. Which seems a little crazy, but it makes sense. Like if you get the kid the $600 bat or the $300 shoes, they're going to be excited about it, but they also know this means that there's some sort of expectation for them to take this bat and these shoes or whatever it is, and they need to perform now. They can't be the same player they were before the bat and the shoes or whatever it is, that it comes with some sort of expectation.
That is really fascinating. That really a student, right, would pick that up.
Well,
right?
It's really hard for a professional
that.
athlete to do that, but can you imagine a 6-year-old or a 12-year-old or even like a 14, 15-year-old? They internalize that as now pressure,
right?
And it's almost created this environment where, again, well-intentioned parents, we really do want what's best for our kids, and everybody else is getting that stuff. We're seeing people get better and bigger and faster, but our kids are receiving all of this, and it's putting pressure on them that they don't. They're internalizing, and it's almost crippling them.
And you talked in particular about identity. How has that happened? Do you think where so many young athletes are now saying, this really is my identity, and shame or blame or all these things they're all of a sudden wrestling with? How have you seen that happen in youth sports today?
It's an extension of sport culture at large, to put our identity in what we are doing instead of who we, as Christians, instead of who we are in Christ. And I don't want to just like blame ESPN for that, but you can just watch ESPN for 10 minutes and you'll pick up on this. Watch after any championship or playoff game or whatever the next big it is. Like, we have an inability now to celebrate what just happened. We're already going to where does this team land, like on the historical greats? Like we're so quick to place this year's champion against all of history to figure out, man, are they actually the best ever? And that's what we do in sports. We identify people on their latest and greatest performance or on their latest and worst performance.
On their failure.
And so what's happening with kids is, they win a game, they're deemed a winner. They lose and they're deemed a loser. And what happens when you go through life and you feel like the sum of your identity is constantly the result of your latest performance and other people's opinions about you? When things are going well, you feel really, really good. But the thing about sports is you need to keep winning and keep winning. You can't just like end on a win.
Right?
You need to keep performing. Yeah. And so it's almost this like treadmill that we're on that's not going anywhere, that we keep looking for affirmation and identity from the latest win. And when we get it, it feels really good and people affirm us. But then the next game we have to do it again, because if we don't, we know what it's like on the other side. And unfortunately, again, I'll say this, well-intentioned parents, we feed into this system by kind of labeling kids as, we would never say winners or losers, but the way we respond, our posture, our tone when they win, oftentimes is so much different than when they lose. And so we need to be so careful as parents to let our kids know going into performances, after performances, that what happens on the field or the court or the pool or the track, whatever it is, holds no bearing on how I think about you as my son or daughter. Like, we really do want to get to a spot where our kids are playing from a position of love instead of for love, because the rest of culture is always going to push the ladder. The rest of culture is always going to say, you need to perform if you want to be loved and accepted and validated. The gospel is completely different. The gospel of Jesus,
upside down,
it's upside down. It says, hey, this is a free gift of grace. You don't have to do anything to earn it. Just accept it. And sports really becomes our playing field to represent the gospel to our kids then. Before they're actually playing, we can say, hey, before you go out there today, I just want to let you know, I love you. I'm so excited to watch you play today. Regardless of what happens, you're still my boy. Yep. You're still my girl.
Right.
So go out there and let it rip. Let's see what you can do today.
And it frees them, right?
It frees them up. And so it almost, in a weird sense, is like the gospel becomes the ultimate performance enhancer. Like, for a kid to know that they are loved and accepted regardless of what happens, means hopefully they're not playing out of fear. They're playing knowing that I can let it rip today because there's really nothing at stake besides just a game. And kids who play free most of the time will play better than the kid who is crippled by fear. And if we want our kids to play to their potential, then we need to reaffirm an identity that's based on relationship and not performance.
Yeah. Don't you think there's just this fun joy part is just missing a little bit? We finished up our high school soccer season and we had a very good record, advanced far in the state tournament. One of the best teams we probably had in a long time here. And I had my seniors all for senior night write about like their best part of their soccer experience. And not one of them mentioned wins and losses.
Interesting.
Not one of them mentioned anything. They all talked about relationships. And they said, oh, that weekend we went to Chicago and we had Giordano's and Portillo's at the tournament. That was awesome.
They remember good food.
They exactly imagined good food, staying in the hotel room, right? With their buddies, like all those kinds of things, right? And it was a really quick trip. We just buzzed over on a Friday, played 2 games and a fun tournament on Saturday. But it was the trip, right? It wasn't the success, even though predominantly that's all the questions they got asked. All the questions I got asked were, how are you guys doing? Are you good this year? How far are you going to go in the state tournament? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But I loved just being reminded as a coach, like, that's what was the best in their mind. That these are, high school guys that have put a ton of time into getting better as athletes, and they're saying, nope, that time together with my buddies was the best thing.
Because we as adults are the ones who have been discipled by culture to say winning is all that matters. That becomes our highest metric.
Completely.
And so we read those survey results, and we're surprised by that because our frame of reference is, well, we did really, really well. So it seems like a lot of the feedback would be positive about that because that's a high value for us.
Of course it is.
For kids, again, let's talk about research. 9 out of 10 kids age 13 and below, so this is probably more middle school, 13 and below, are going to say, 9 out of 10 will say that winning is not their highest value in sport. So 90% of kids don't really care about winning. While we're filming this, we had a snow day. My son is a freshman in high school. He's on the wrestling team at Lowell. They're like 12-time state champs. So they're really, really good.
Awesome program, right?
He is, as I'm filming this with you, he's building snow forts in the yard right now. Love it. And as a dad, I'm watching that, and I'm not going, okay, this is good because he's strengthening his muscles. He's lifting really big things, and so his base is getting solid. No, he's just playing. Like as a freshman, I don't need a reason for that to be good. It's good just because it is good, and that's what our kids do when parents aren't watching, when coaches aren't present, and we can give them space to just be kids. They default to play and have fun.
Yeah, and you even talk about that in the book, right? A little bit about this whole idea of like the value of play, even from a biblical perspective, right? And how we've lost some of that, I think, and how we need to prioritize and protect that.
Yeah, if you think of kids, this is so funny. Like, and all parents would resonate with this, especially as we approach Christmas. You're going to get like the young kids some sort of fun toy, right? And what normally happens is they're going to take it out of the cardboard box, they'll look at it, and then they'll spend a lot of time playing with a cardboard box, right? And you're like, why didn't I just get them a bunch of cardboard or plastic spoons? Because kids just naturally default to play. And then we make a point in the book that the Bible is going to show in Zechariah and Isaiah. There's 2 separate scriptures which talk about in the new earth specifically, the kids are in the streets playing. This picture of like almost this bookend of, man, kids when they're really, really young, they default to play. And then in the new earth and eternity, kids will be playing. And so why do we dismiss it in our reality right now? Why are we so quick to squash it or minimize it? And so a theology of play would be, man, if we start doing this, which probably models us being created in the image of God, if we're wired just naturally to play, and if it's going to be part of our future, we need to make sure we're integrating it and infusing it and also celebrating it into kids' lives today. And maybe even our lives as adults too. Maybe it starts with us just, are we finding time to play and do things that are fun? And just like, it's okay to not be serious all the time. Go have fun. Go do something playful.
Yeah. Again, I'm just thinking back to like, what's one of our great traditions in our little boys soccer program? It's our soccer golf day that happens on the last Friday in September. And we're just kicking it around, and they all have partners, and there's a cup and a prize and all that stuff. And it's literally just play. That's all it is.
That's
In
great.
the moment of, but little things like that, they really do matter.
That's cool.
One of the reasons I love this book is that it's actually a super hopeful book, because I think you can get a little bit overwhelmed, right? By doing the research, thinking about culture, and just saying, how do we respond to all of this? Because it feels sometimes like the culture, I feel that all the time, right? The culture, like you said, is just going higher and faster, and my kid can't compete. And I have parents even ask, like, does my kid have to play club soccer even to make your team now? Is that all those kinds of things? I love the things that you guys talked about in terms of before, during, and after these games. Because to me, that time is so important, right? And so crucial for us as parents. And I felt like that was such a powerful part of this text. You guys almost creating a game plan for, like, how do we approach those really important moments that do shape a lot of our relationship with our kids and how our kids' identity is changing and growing.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there because it's a full chapter in the book. Before the game, we break it into 3 categories. Before we go to the game, we need to think through our kids' physical needs, their mental needs, and their spiritual needs. Because ultimately what we're arguing for in the book is we want to uphold a high value of play and fun, and we want our kids to get to the game or the event, whatever it is, in a state where they're excited, regulated, and not stressed out and anxious. And so there's specific things we can do on the physical side. And obviously, like, this is going to differ whether your kid's 6 years old or 16 years old. But physical things like, man, is their jersey laid out on the table? Are they using the same water bottle? Are we feeding them a familiar breakfast so it's going to sit well in their stomach? Basic physical needs like that. When they're 6, we need to own that process. When they're 12, we probably need to remind them of those things. When they're 16, they need to be empowered to do it on their own. But it starts with us creating that when they're young. On the emotional side, again, we want our kids to get to the event happy and not anxious. And so music plays a big part of that. So are we playing music that represents a mood that's happy and lighthearted, or are we always throwing on, like, I don't know what the kids' version is of jock jams. That was probably our day, right?
I know exactly. I'm thinking, like, Rocky all of a sudden.
We want to throw on the Rocky music and get them pumped up. Our kids don't need to be pumped up at a young age, especially. Like, they need to be loose. And so things like that, the words we use too in our tone. So we need to make sure that we're not running around the house like crazy people as well. And so we need to model peace if we want to impart that to them. On the spiritual side, I think parents can use a lot of creativity with this. So it can be for sure more than praying with them beforehand, for sure not less though. So it can be more than that, but not less. And so even as you're leaving the house, it can be praying 1 Corinthians 10:31, God, whether we eat or drink, whatever we do today, we're going to do everything for your glory. We have our kids put on the armor of God before they go to school every day, but we do it in sport too. And so helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness. And so put that on them. So just be creative with that. During the game, I will shorten this as much as possible to 2 words. Talk less. Talk less. And I would encourage parents to just try going to a game. Just try it once and practice a posture of silence for the entire game. Just try it once. And pay attention to everything that's being said. And it is eye-opening to hear the amount of, again, well-intentioned parents who want what's best for their kids and they're cheering them on. But if you're just listening, you're like, oh my gosh, I would be so anxious if I was on the field right now, because that's what we have created from the stands, this environment which just exudes anxiety. It's like, go, run, pass, shoot, do this. And everybody is doing it.
It's so many voices.
And again, so we have professionalized it because we care a lot about it. But if you talk about what's making kids so anxious, show up at a game and just listen and take inventory of what's coming out of people's mouths. Not in a way to judge, but just to know, like, what do I usually contribute to when I'm my normal self. And then after the game, one of the biggest reason kids are quitting, they have reported, is the car ride home. The car ride home. I've said this.
That's a hard one.
I've said this a lot, and I'll say it again. Well-intentioned parents, like, I get it, parents. I'm there too, and I have been discipled by an ESPN culture where I want to analyze, and I love sports. I have all the fixes for what went wrong. I want to celebrate the things that went right. The question that I've started asking my kids the last 2 years has been a game changer for me. They get into the car, and I say, "Is there anything that happened in the game today that you want to talk about?" Nope. not like,
And it's often nope, I bet, right?
yeah, I think maybe 2 or 3 times they want to talk about something. They're wanting to move on to the next thing. It's me that has so much invested in it, and I care so deeply about it.
Brian. Yeah.
They're already moving on to the next thing.
Yep.
So, and I'll be clear about this too. Like sometimes there's things that happen in the game that we need to talk about.
Might
this
need to be
right
addressed,
away.
right?
Yeah, it needs to be addressed. But a lot of times it's just my own, again, selfishness of like, I just want to analyze the game with you. I love sports and I want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But kids are saying they need less coaching, critiquing from parents. They need more connection. And so for me, like Ed's the co-writer of this, his mantra now has become less talking, more Slurpees. So like on the ride home, like let's get ice cream, let's get a Slurpee, and I'm gonna die to self, and I'm not gonna give you all my coaching tips unless you want them. Do you want them? No, I don't. Okay. So we've kind of likened it lately to like if you're watching a college football game and you get the halftime interview with the coach. And the coach just like doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to talk, but the interview's like, we have to do this. We're doing it right now. That's how kids are internalizing this car ride home. It's like they don't want to talk about it.
That makes a lot of sense.
We're the analysts who are like, nope, I have my 4 questions and we're going to ask and we're going to get through this. And so connection over coaching on the car ride home. Yeah. And the goal is, we're hoping that our kids are going to enjoy sport more because of that. Ed keeps joking, man, I hope because of my relationship in the car ride home, my kids want to come home for Thanksgiving in 30 years. Like the car ride home could be a preventer of that. And so I really want to make sure that it's a safe space where when they shut the door.
Because it's those moments, right, when the emotion gets the best of us that really can have that long-term impact in our relationship.
We can unintentionally wound them because we care too much about it, and we want them to care as much as we do.
Yeah.
Some kids do.
Some kids are wired that way, no doubt about it.
Those are honestly the kids that are going to make it.
They're the ones that will get there. I agree.
We think we can buy our way into that or put our kid on the next club team that's going to get him. Like, if your kid's going to make it to college or play at the next level, it's going to be because of 2 things. One, God has uniquely gifted them genetically to be able to do the things that they're doing really well. And then 2, they have just an internal drive that you did not buy. You did not properly place them on the team to do this. God just gave them this drive where they want to wake up early. They want to put in the work. They want to practice the offhand. And when you have those 2 combinations, those are usually the kids that make it.
For sure. Yeah, that's another topic.
Yep.
Even from a coaching perspective, that we need to do a better job as coaches, especially and other people with parents and players, just about the challenge of playing in college and how good athletes are at the college level. And man, so many athletes that I've worked with have ended up so disappointed, and so many families so broken in so many ways with very little, like we started that conversation, economic or whatever return you want to have.
Yeah, it's a scarcity.
In that whole process.
It is a problem of scarcity. Like there's just not a whole lot of college scholarships. It goes to a very select amount of people. And I think it's the latest stat is 2% of kids are getting a college scholarship. But again, if you look at other stats, 20% of parents think that their kid is one of those 2%. And so there is this, we need a wake-up call.
I know. All right. We're kind of wrapping up a little bit, but this has been such a helpful and thought-provoking conversation. A couple takeaways maybe you could give to the audience in thinking about, we're going to keep playing, right? We're going to keep watching. We're going to keep parenting. I'm through the parenting, but even now my son, it's awesome. My son is my assistant coach. And he's still, it's fascinating. He's still the guy who's like telling me, hey, you don't need to talk to the referee like that. You don't need to like calm down, man. It's a high school soccer game. Yeah. He literally said that to me a couple times this season. I was like, he's still doing it, reminding me, right? But just a couple things, just maybe from your perspective that you'd want to leave.
As parents, when we stand before the Lord, we are not going to be held to account of whether our kid made the A team or the B team or got the college scholarship. We are giving an account of helping them be best positioned to grow in their walk with Jesus. As youth sports parents, I think we often don't trust our investment enough into youth sports. We don't trust it for enough. And what I mean by that is we're investing right now, think that our kid's going to get the next starting spot, the A team, the club, whatever it is. What we're arguing for in this book is what your youth sport investment is actually buying you is you have a front row seat to see your kid go through every possible emotion, from the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. You get to see the areas of character gaps in their life, lack of self-control, anxiety, like how they respond to authority.
Yeah.
You're seeing all of that. You don't know what's happening at school because you're not sitting in the classroom with them. In sport, we're seeing all of it happen. And then as their primary disciplers, it's our job then to take what we're seeing on the field. And yes, there's performance metrics that we can be concerned about because we do want them to be the best possible.
Yeah.
But on the other side, man, if I'm seeing a kid who consistently is degrading a referee that doesn't have self-control, I can't ignore that. But I also, in a weird way, I'm like, okay, this is a gap in his life. This is my job as his primary discipler, is to take what I'm seeing on the field now and let's have a conversation about this. Let's open up the Bible and see what the Bible would say about self-control. How do we actually get self-control in our life? How can we partner with the Holy Spirit to have more of it in games so that hopefully next time we play, or maybe 3 months down the line, we're acting different because we as parents are using what's happening on the field or court to help sharpen our kids in their relationship with Jesus. So the Holy Spirit is telling us he's wanting to grow all of us in the fruit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So we don't have to guess about what he wants to do. And largely what that book is doing is it's taking that list of the fruit of the Spirit for the most part and saying, here's how you can take what you're seeing on the field and turn those into fruit of the Spirit type conversations.
All right, one kind of final question. And this is a hard one, right? I think so much of this world is summed up in the travel club sports conversation, right? And the fact that you even talked about something that was publicly funded for so long now has become privately funded. And I think that's probably the number one question that I get from parents, that sometimes I get from players, athletes, and I think is so much a part of, and it, in soccer, obviously it's huge, in basketball it's huge, in baseball it's huge, in anything almost now, right?
Yeah.
How do we navigate, from your perspective, just a thought about this need to be part of the club world? I know so many families struggle with, we're not going to church anymore because, Sundays are now spent at the soccer field or the basketball court or the volleyball court. Or do you have a thought on that in particular as we wrap up?
I can do a quick one here.
Yeah.
It really is a discipleship conversation with specific parents who are wrestling with us to talk about all of the different layers involved. And so I want to be careful not to give a one-size-fits-all answer because everybody's coming from a different perspective. Some kids or some families, they just have one kid in sports. Some parents have the means to make this work. Some parents go to a church that has a Saturday night and a Sunday morning service.
Yep.
So here would be the three categories I would encourage people who are engaging in these conversations to think about. One is the kid leading the bus in this conversation, or is the kid driving the bus?
Right.
And so, as parents, we need to be careful that we're not just putting them on the next club team without involving them.
Or even a
in the
higher
process.
level team that's more travel, right? That's one of the questions. My son in particular was like,
my measuring stick is,
I don't want to do that.
Are my
thing,
kids
right?
asking for that?
Yes.
Or am I telling them that they're going to do it, or influencing them in that way?
Yeah.
If they're begging for it, that's showing, man, maybe they have one of those two things we talk about either.
Right.
If they're leading the process, then I'm willing to invest in a little bit more, but it's got to come from them and not from me. So that's the first thing.
Yep.
Two is, what does this mean for church involvement?
Right.
Is this next thing that we're going to do going to pull us away from the body of Christ, especially if we have a high value of integrating our Christian faith into all of life? To say yes to something that's pulling us away from one of the primary ways that we're connected to the body and grow, it seems unwise to me.
Yeah.
And then three, what does it do to our family rhythms? And so if we're saying yes to this, does this mean we're traveling a lot? Again, if we have other kids, are they coming with us? Are they home alone? Do we have a budget to pay for meals out and hotels? And so even doing a calendar budget of what is this going to do to our family over the next 3 months, 5 months. Those are the three areas. Is the kid driving it? What does it mean for our church involvement? And then what about our family involvement?
Those are super helpful. I really appreciate the practicality of what you have to share with us. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up, but can you talk just a little bit about where you write, where people can find some of those resources, that kind of stuff?
Yep, I do all of my writing at thechristianathlete.com. So
right.
I have another book specifically for athletes called The Christian Athlete,
right.
glorifying God in
Yep.
sports. Anything that I've written can be accessed there. So I have devotionals that you can get through YouVersion, but all of that is accessed through thechristianathlete.com.
Awesome. Yeah, our soccer guys have been doing one of your devotionals the last 30 days together, which has been a blast. And just in particular, I just want to push again. We're really excited. This book, Away Game. It's a fantastic resource. You've heard a little bit of just snippets of the conversations and the content in here. It's an amazing gift. I'm thinking about Christmas, literally to give to other people, because so many of us are wrestling with these topics.
Don't give it and say, "Hey, I've heard what you said at games. You might need to read this."
Don't be like, "Hey, you yelled at that referee."
Don't do the passive aggressive ask.
Exactly. I love it. Right. But just somebody who maybe you've had conversations with and who you're wrestling with. These topics, and in particular, Brian and Ed, the two authors, are going to be on campus on March 4th here at NorthPointe. They're going to be spending some time talking with our coaches and with parents, which we're really excited about. We're excited. We're going to put this resource in a lot of, hopefully, NorthPointe families' hands, just so we can have that conversation together as a school and really seek, as you guys have just invited and challenged us to do athletically differently, just to do it in a different way. So
awesome.
Thanks for your wisdom, your experience. You're incredibly authentic in this book. I'm
not perfect, and you'll learn that in the book. So
exactly.
It's a lot of my failures in the process.
There's a lot of real, honest conversation in here. And just thanks for helping us to think so deeply. I just remember I've spent a lot of time in my life in conversations about how does faith integrate into culture. And I remember going to all these conferences and thinking, how is no one talking about sports here? They'd talk about everything else. Yeah. And then I'd be like, man, am I the only one? I watch it all the time. Yeah. We go to it all the time, everything. And so I think what you guys, and taking those biblical values and putting it into a framework, super valuable. So thanks a ton, and appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Point. I'm your producer, Alex Sigma. And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to rate us on Spotify and share this podcast with others. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Spotify. We'll see you on the next episode.